This video clip will take us all the way to the end of the text and also give us some review questions. You'll be allowed to make a prediction or get the opportunity to create a prediction and then reflect on your notes, and then we'll have the opportunity to extend. So be sure that you have your notes in front of you. It's a T chart, either in a notebook or it can be in Google Docs. The left hand side has details, the right hand side has explanations. We'll be explaining throughout the process the details that we find, as well as the questions that we'll answer along the way for our active reading. On the right hand side, page 8. When George could open his eyes again, the photograph of Harrison was gone. A living, breathing Harrison filled the screen. Okay, let's add that detail. That detail gives us a lot of context about the way that world works. Again, we're in 2081, the future. The author is giving us a compare and contrast between the typical, what we experience now, and the future by contrasting it. It's not every day that something becomes a living, breathing being in the television screen. So make note of that. Let's continue. Clanking, clownish, and huge, Harrison stood in the center of the studio. The knob of the uprooted studio door was still in his hand. Ballerinas, technicians, musicians, and announcers cowered on their knees before him, expecting to die. I am the Emperor, cried Harrison. Do you hear? I am the Emperor. Everyone must do what I say at once. He stamped his foot and the studio shook. Even as I stand here, he bellowed, crippled, hobbled, sickened, I am a greater ruler than any man who ever lived. Now watch me become what I can become. Harrison tore the straps of his handicap harness like wet tissue paper tore straps guaranteed to support 5,000 pounds. Let's stop. Add the details that you just read. What does Harrison call himself? What influence does he have on other people around him as a character? And how do his actions contribute to people thinking things about him based on the way that he looks? Add those details, explain those details. Let's move forward. Harrison's scrap iron handicaps crashed to the floor. Harrison thrust his thumbs under the bar of the padlock that secured his head harness. The bar snapped like celery. Harrison smashed his headphones and spectacles against the wall. He flung away his rubber ball nose, revealed a man that would have awed Thor, the god of thunder. Okay, let's add those details to the text, or to our graphic organizer or our notes. Those details being a before and after. Before, Harrison had to wear iron scrap handicaps. After, he took them off. Before, Harrison had to wear a head harness. After, he took off the padlock. Let's continue that pattern. Notice how the author is giving you another pattern, which is before and after. Before and after. Harrison, what he looked like before. Now Harrison, what he looks like after. I mention that because you'll have to do that for your own writing for one of your assignments. Let's continue. I shall now select my empress, he said, looking down on the cowering people. Let the first woman who dares rise to her feet claim her mate and her throne. A moment passed, and then a ballerina rose, swaying like a willow. Let's take note. What did Harrison ask or request? What was the response and the reaction from the people around him? Who responded first? Take note of all those details. Explain each detail. So, for example, the ballerina arose. Then infer, explain why do you think that was? Harrison plucked the mental handicap from her ear, snapped off her physical handicaps with marvelous delicacy. Last of all, he removed her mask. She was blindingly beautiful. Now, Harrison said, taking her hand, shall we show the people the meaning of the word dance? Music, he commanded. The musicians scrambled back into their chairs, and Harrison stripped them of their handicaps too. Play your best, he told them, and I'll make you barons and dukes and earls. The music began, and it was normal at first, cheap, silly false. But Harrison snatched two musicians from their chairs, waved them like batons as he sang the music he wanted it played. He slammed them back into their chairs. The music began again, and it was much improved. Again, let's take notes. Details. What happened, or what are people's responses to Harrison? Why do you think people respond to him that way? What is the action, the before and after, that Harrison seems to have, the influence that he has on everybody else? Let's continue. Harrison and his empress merely listened to music for a while, listened gravely, as though synchronized their heartbeats with it. They shifted their weights to their toes. Harrison placed his big hands on the girl's tiny waist, letting her sense the weightlessness that would soon be hers. And then, in an explosion of joy and grace, into the air they sprang. Not only were the laws of the land abandoned, but the law of gravity and the laws of motion as well. They reeled, whirled, swiveled, flounced, capered, gamboled, and spun. They leaped like deer on the moon. The studio ceiling was 30 feet high, but each leap brought the dancers nearer to it. It became their obvious intention to kiss the ceiling. They kissed it. And then, neutralizing gravity with love and pure will, they remained suspended in air inches below the ceiling. And they kissed each other for a long, long time. It was then that Diana Moon Glampers, the handicapper general, came into the studio with the double-barreled 10-gauge shotgun. She fired twice, and the Emperor and the Empress were dead before they hit the floor. Diana Moon Glampers loaded the gun again. She aimed at the musicians and told them they had 10 seconds to get their handicaps back on. Okay, you were just given a lot of details. Go back to your notes. What did Harrison do? What was he doing with his body? What was the Empress doing with her body? What did Diana Moon Glampers do? What did she use to get everybody's attention? How did she get everybody's attention? Answer those questions with the details, and then explain those answers using the text. Pause for a moment and then click the Review tab. Ask yourself some questions presented there before you finish reading the story. Make notes of your thoughts and annotations on the document. At this time, go ahead and guide yourself through the process of the review slide, which is right here. Make a prediction in your notes and label it prediction. Reflect back on your notes with these questions. Make note of them in the explain side of your T-chart. And then if you would like to extend into the next part of the assignment, which is your active reading quiz.